So with that, it is my pleasure to bring up to the stage Tom Aarts. So Tom is a ANA Strategic Advisory Board member. He is incredibly schooled in the industry and the field of nutrition and personalized nutrition, specifically over the last several years. He's been an incredible volunteer for the ANA and Catalyst, and he is going to help kick off these Catalyst sessions. So Tom is also the co-founder of the Nutrition Business Journal and the NBJ Summit, and also the co-founder and principal of the Nutrition Capital Network. So with that, I bring to the stage Tom Aarts, who's going to open the Catalyst sessions and begin with a discussion of the state of the personalized nutrition field. Please join me in welcoming Tom Aarts.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's an honor to be here. I will probably move around because I don't like being stuck behind a podium. So if that'll work, let's see if my mic works. The audio team is crack. Really professional back there. Thank you. Again, my name's Tom Aarts, and I've been in the nutrition industry since 1995 when I started this journal called NBJ, and I've dedicated sort of my career and life to nutrition. My connection to ANA goes back to when it was a lot of diverse organizations, and I spoke at this conference about 20 years ago when I forgot who the person who invited me, but I was in a room of all scientists, and I was the only business guy there, and I felt very out of place and under-credentialed because you guys have all the scientific credentials. My credentials are in business, but I have the same passion for nutrition that everybody here has, and I've sort of came into this industry using my business background to try to understand the industry and have had a great career in doing that. So I've loved working with ANA because I think nutrition needs to get out there to everybody. I just flew in here from San Diego. I'm sitting in my plane seat next to somebody who's a professor at the UCSD. We talked about nutrition. 3-4 people around the edges have a loud voice. They heard that. They came up to me. They asked me about vitamin D and COVID. And so I think the world is super interested in nutrition. I think COVID has really brought that spotlight. So when we sort of moved the organization towards personalized nutrition, my credentials are that I have just been studying the personalized nutrition space for the last 7 or 8 or 9 years and trying to define it, and it's really hard to define. So I've asked Mike if I could try to have your patience as we sort of understand this industry, but we can't put like a concrete number around it. Like, the dietary supplement industry is 56.5 billion, growing at 7.2% per year. We know all those numbers. We don't know it for personalized nutrition. We're trying to figure out the size and growth of this sector, but it is growing and it is driving a lot of businesses, which I want to talk about today. So today, let me see if I go back here. Yeah, so I'll talk about the definitions and the trends in our sector, a little bit about the size, talk about where the field is going, and then talk a little bit about what's going on the numbers, on the money side of this industry, because it's like you can see that big companies are investing in this space, but nobody's really figured it out yet, which we'll see. So again, this is an article I wrote a couple years ago when I decided I better actually experience a lot of these personalized nutrition tests. So I went out and took like 24 different diagnostic tests during 1 year, every microbiome test I could take, every blood test I could take, every DNA test I could take, and I tried to summarize it in one article and what were my findings from all this experience. Has anybody ever heard of Larry Smarr? This gentleman out of San Diego is like the most measured man in the world from a healthcare standpoint. I wanted to try to become that in personalized nutrition. I'm still doing these tests, and I've learned a lot, but it's been very confusing, and a lot of the results are difficult to figure out. And a lot of the reports are overwhelming, and I'm not sure what to do. And one practitioner says do this, and another one says do that. And is DNA really connected to nutrition the way everybody thinks it is? And is there an easy path? I call it the what, the so what, and the now what. And it wasn't very clear that it was clear. And then my journey in this really started way back in 2013 when I started to look at the supplement industry, which I know pretty well. And I started to think that maybe the future of supplement industry is going to be a company that comes from technology standpoint that understands personalized nutrition from a diagnostic standpoint. I got to be connected to Jeff Bland, who many of you know, who started the functional medicine movement and Metagenics. And I helped him with his PLMI Institute, and I really started to realize that this whole notion of like personalized lifestyle medicine, and there's lots of names for this: precision medicine, personalized medicine, but there's this whole sort of notion of like, can you test and then can you make changes based on the test? And this is not new to medicine, but it is fairly new to this whole personalized approach to nutrition. And I thought that, you know, with the healthcare crisis coming in, now we've had a little pandemic to deal with, and all the diagnostics and mobile technology and big data on the other side, that we're going to see this sort of like movement that's going to happen. And maybe the next big supplement company might be a technology company coming into this industry from Silicon Valley as opposed to just a supplement company. So that's sort of how I got into this journey and try to figure out who's going to make it. So here's a shot at defining the space and defining personalized nutrition. This is my definition, and I'll put up some other definitions. And I think it's important to define it. I told Mike when I was on the board, I said, we have to define personalized nutrition because if we don't, someone else will. So here's was one of my early definitions. So yesterday, it comes at it from a product standpoint. Yesterday was sort of products and services to talk about a customized program. Today is maybe diet, lifestyle, and recommendations based on blood, saliva, urine, stool, skin tests. Those are the inputs, right? And then tomorrow, 3.0 might be more of a one-stop solution that includes real-time data, graphical displays of nutrients and biomarkers from our wrist or from Apple Watch, personalized supplement regimes, and engineered foods. And there's a lot of companies trying to figure out, you know, how to get into 3.0 and how to make a business that works, and nobody's really conquered it yet. Here's some other definitions that are out there in the space. Here's a personalized medicine definition, which is utilizes genomic and other data to optimize and personalize treatment. ILSI, an organization out of Washington, defined personalized nutrition in a certain way, and it wasn't very different from ANA's definition. So our definition, you saw Mike talk about earlier, is a field that leverages human individuality to drive nutrition strategies that prevent, manage, and treat disease and optimize health. And I think that's a really good definition of what it is. And I think at the end of the day, consumer just wants to know how to feel healthier and then know if they are healthier by testing. So I tried to make this new because I presented this at the, and by the way, I do want to take a little break here and say I really applaud the ANA organization, Michael and your team, for leaning into having this event in person. It's not easy. I just ran an event this summer and just went to Expo East, and you know, to have an in-person event now as COVID's still looming out there and booster shots and the variant is very challenging, and I think they deserve another hand right now for just being here in person today. So I know I'm anxious to get out there in person, so as long as I feel protected and my immune system is strong. So I really applaud all of you that are here today. So here's what happened in the last year, because I presented this last year and a lot of the things haven't changed in the last 10 months. But here's some news that has happened in this space. Ubiome, not a very pleasant or good story, went a little overboard in insurance billing and got a little out of control, and now they went bankrupt. They were one of the first member of microbiome companies out of Silicon Valley that were going to change the world. I met the founder, and it's a sad story, but I mean, they were on the cutting edge. DSM is a major multi-billion-dollar ingredient company in the nutrition space. They are very interested in personalized nutrition. They started a venture fund. They've made 7 investments, and they just made an announcement this year that they started this this organization inside their company called Hologram, where they put $100 million into research on personalized nutrition. It's based out of Europe, but they're looking at different delivery forms, different diagnostics, and it's part of their venture interest in personalized nutrition because they believe that this is where the future is. Nature's Way bought Bayes, which was a microneedle diagnostic technology, and we don't know what's going to happen with that. Longevity is part of the Thorne Research Group. They just went public last week. I don't know if you saw that. They changed. They started as a supplement company. They moved into testing. Then they moved into health tech. And now they've repackaged their company called Thorne Health Tech and went IPO on the public markets, which is pretty interesting. But a lot of their strategies based around personalized nutrition. Other organizations, Forbes just had an article just last week, last Tuesday. They talked about 7 or 8 or 9 trends that are important, and one of them they mentioned was personalized supplements. quoting MBJ actually, and they talked about some others. I'll talk about the Forbes article. CVS, I've talked to CVS directly. I've talked to Walgreens. I know they're interested in personalized nutrition. They don't really know what to do with it, but there's somebody in that organization whose job it is to figure out how are we going to get into personalized nutrition. They did start a little personalized obesity program at the retail level. And then Viome, which is another microbiome testing company, just made an announcement to work with Nordstrom's, which I thought was really interesting. So Forbes had this article just last week. They said, you know, we have, here are the trends to watch in 2020, 21. We always have these articles on trends coming out from now to the end of the year. They said, you know, greater need for mental health. But the two I picked out were big adoption in telehealth and wellness, partially out of the pandemic. Look at this statistic here. An organization that tracks apps said there's 71,000 new health and fitness apps were launched in just 2020. And then they also said that supplement sales are booming, which we know they are, but a lot of it is going to be booming around personalized nutrition if people can figure that out. And those personalized nutrition supplements are up 35%, which is 5 times the market growth. So we have key players that have been in this sector. If you look at all these companies, we don't have time to go through all of them, but in 2018 we had DNA companies, survey companies, tracking devices. I think some of these companies are even here in the exhibit hall. And then we've got some companies have gone out of business. Some companies are still going to, you know, maybe make it to the next level. We've had newcomers come in. And then we've also had the big players that are interested in this space. Nestle Health Sciences doesn't get bigger than that, right? DSM, Bayer, Abbott, GNC, Amway. All these companies are interested in personalized programs because it's sort of a big trend across all other industries beyond you can just buy your own pair of Nike personalized sneakers these days or personalize your own Tesla car to have your different colors. And so it's like a big trend that's happening, but it's happening in this space. Bayer and Nestle each purchased a company that could be, these companies called Care of Persona could be called personalized nutrition companies. I think it's a bit of a stretch. It's basically a questionnaire online, and then you get a packet of supplements that, you know, it has your name on it. And so that packet is put together for you. I consider this sort of like the beginnings of personalization, but they don't use any other inputs. They don't use blood or DNA or urine. They talked about doing it, but then they sold out to these companies before they got down that pathway. So these are good platforms for personalized nutrition. I wouldn't say they are, you know, the ultimate example of a personalized nutrition company, and it's hard to tell how successful they are now that they're inside these big companies. I have some inside information in some of them. I know they're still growing the business. Obviously, they're going to put money behind it. Nestle's going to continue to put money behind it, but you don't really see Persona out there, you know, nationally advertised, and a lot of people don't really know what the brand is. How many of you have heard of Persona here in the room? Yeah, see, not even everybody here has heard of it. So let's see what they can do with these two companies. So let me talk a little more philosophically about what's important in personalized nutrition from our observation and what's going to make it work. And again, I know the rest of the week is going to be about a lot of science stuff, which I'm always interested in. But let me talk about the business side of like, what is it going to take to really make this more real in people's minds and really make it an important part of what's going to happen to society. So if you look at the old medicine, 20th century medicine, you've seen a lot of these charts. Used to call it the sick care system, the well care system. So in 20th century medicine, you have a clinical sign. You have something. I went in for an operation a month ago. It was great. They knew what they were doing. Had a small hernia. Fantastic. Had a clinical sign of this, and this is what you do. This is how you treat it. We're done. It's all fixed. Great. Works fine. Wonderful. But 21st century medicine is going to move towards how do we, push disease off? How do we not let all these chronic diseases bankrupt us? How do we not have 400 million people, 400 million, is it $400 billion it's going to be costing for us for Alzheimer's? I can't remember the number. It's just enormous, right? And so these diseases, which could change our society and really make it, a bad economic society for us, how do we actually push ahead of those? And that's what ANA is all about, and that's what this conference is about. So this is where I think you get ahead of the curve. And this is where functional medicine is. This is where a lot of the inroads in research are going. But medicine is moving in this direction, whether they know it or not. And they just have to get there. It's hard to change medicine, believe me. So we've been treating here on this side, but I think instead we need to move towards that side. And you need personalization and diagnostics to do it. Somebody told me, I had a conversation this week with an executive in one of those companies I mentioned earlier, And he said he was blown away last year when the NIH came out with a report that talked about their strategic plan for nutrition research. And in that report, you can find more the word precision rather than personalized. But they are realizing, even from the government and public policy level, that we need to look at personalized approaches to medicine and nutrition. And even in diabetes, there's standards of care in diabetes, but there's even talk of like measurement of blood glucose levels and how do we titrate against personalized diagnostics. And that's really when the government gets involved, and I think we see a major shift. It will still take them 5 or 10 years, I think, because the government moves slow, but I think that's a good sign. COVID, if there's no other example of personalized nutrition or personalization, just look at COVID. I mean, if I asked you all to raise your hand of how many of you know somebody in your family or a relative or a friend that had an experience with COVID-19, I bet that it wasn't the same for every person that you know. I know couples that live together, they are in the same house together, one's vaccinated, one got COVID and vaccinated, the other one's not vaccinated, I don't know why, let's not get into the vaccination debate, and did not get COVID. So there's one example, but people had very different experiences with this virus and this disease. And that really shed a light to me on personalization. I think it's an accelerator, even though it's a sad challenge that we have to deal with as a society. I think it shows that this, I mean, even if you look at the disease, you're not even into nutrition or personalized nutrition, you have to say, why is everybody getting things treated differently during this pandemic? It's because everybody's an N of one. And you can't just give one drug or maybe one vaccine. Everybody's going to have a different experience. Now, we have to conquer this thing with vaccines, but there's a personalized component to people's health, and COVID is going to shed light on that. LEK did a survey, and they found that 21% of the 61% responded that COVID-19 somewhat or significantly increased their awareness of personalized nutrition, but only 1% subscribed to a service. So there's awareness, and there's actually doing something. There's government regulations coming in. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. The UK is trying to figure out how to understand what DNA testing does. They don't want people making too many promises from DNA testing because there has been some companies out there that say, here's what you need to do from your genomic test results. And they're trying to come up with some standards to actually control some of the claims that consumers are making, just like the FDA does with supplements. Testing is out there all over the place. We're seeing big companies moving forward with offering tests. There's a company called Everlywell, which is doing extremely well on Amazon, all over the place with all these home tests they're doing, vitamin D tests, vitamin omega-3 tests. They're basically launching into the testing business. And of course, you had 23andMe and Ancestry, and you have this other company called Let's Get Checked. So as basically things move forward, we need to be able to get diagnostics easily to consumers. But behind the scenes of personalization is the data. And the next 3 or 4 slides get pretty, intense, but it's mostly, I can summarize them all by saying if we don't have access to the right data and we don't have the right data flowing into the right algorithm with the right AI-based algorithm, there's lots of research on AI engines, then we really we won't be able to move this field forward. You ever heard that expression, garbage in, garbage out? So the data is really where it's at. This is where we need to understand what those data inputs are and how those data inputs are going to go into the algorithm, and then back to the consumer for feedback so they can make behavior modification based on the algorithm and the data, and how is it so easy to use that the consumer can actually see the results. I was talking to someone yesterday about this initiative that Craig Ventnor launched in San Diego. I'm from San Diego, and he launched the HLI, which is the Human Longevity Institute, and they did this big test where they were going after high net worth individuals initially, and you paid $20. Did anybody go through HLI here? Yeah, one of our board members, Joy. Yeah, and she was saying last night, and I agree because I went through it too, it's like you pay all this money, you get your functional MRI, you get your DNA tests, you get everything, and they, it's like a wonderful experience. They treat you like a VIP. Then you get like 900 or like 90 pages of reports, and you're like, what do I do with this? Like, what is the what? What do I do with it? It's overwhelming and confusing. So I think that's the key, is how do we get that back to people so that they can actually take actionable steps to change their behavior or deal with their disease or deal with whatever health issue they're dealing with. So I don't know what 3.0 looks like. Everybody throws these numbers out, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. But I know that it's going to have to include all of these pieces of the puzzle. Again, this is not my slide. This came from a personalized nutrition conference that we were chairing a few months ago, which was pretty well attended by many large companies. And somebody put a slide up that said you need the profile, you need the AI engine, and then you need the nutrition, and then each has a feedback loop. So this is sort of what it might look like in the future. So how big is the category? I don't know if anybody cares about the business side of this, but we don't know how big it is. Remember I said we're trying to size it? Don't know. That's why there's X's there. I don't usually put slides up with X's. I usually put slides up with real numbers, and we are going to get a real number at some point. So we decided to tackle this, this growth in this industry by looking at the different segments and the different numbers that we could get a hold of. And this data is actually dated now, but there's been 200 million in valuations in the microbiome. There's 270 million nutrition activity users. I think that number is above 300 now. There's 30 million people that have taken DNA tests, and there's lots of people that have done nutrition panels. So personalized nutrition sort of falls in there with all those numbers. And here's a company that did take an attempt at sizing it. I haven't vetted this number to see if it's exactly correct, but this was through one of these market research organizations, and they said the personalized nutrition market is expected to reach 16.6 billion by 2027 and has a CAGR of 13.6%. So this is, one global number because we tend to look in the U.S., but here's a company that is trying to attempt to size, the market globally. And I've looked at some of their methodology, and it looks like it's interesting how they tackled this, but we're trying to, again, figure out by next year I'll have a size for this industry as we piece it together because it's many industries, right? And then we did do some work at MBJ. They did publish a report on personalized nutrition, but it was mostly driven around supplements because that's what we know. And we had to bite off a piece of this challenge by just going into supplements. So we looked at nutritional supplement sales and growth from 2018 to 2024. And then you can see the yellow line here. I guess do I have a thing here? Yeah. Does that work? I guess this doesn't work. Okay. So you can see the yellow line is the growth rate. The bar chart is the size of the supplement industry. And then if you look below, and I'll sort of tease this out, these are the different inputs that went into it. We have survey-based nutrition, microbiome testing, genetic testing, and biomarker testing. And we think this area is growing faster than the nutrition industry. We think people are interested in it, but we think that it needs to be made simple. This is sort of like the breakup of those, the breakout of that on a pie chart. You can see personalized nutrition supplement testing by type, microbiome testing, biomarker testing, genetic testing, and then survey-based is the easiest one, a survey to start with. It's almost like you have to start with a survey, and then you can bring other people's data in. And I think the company that kind of figures out how to bring some of the data in that people already have, maybe in their electronic record, is going to be really critical. And I know there's some data companies working on that. So here's a big eye chart that's pretty confusing, but again, I'm a business guy, so we look at all the investments in this space, and here's the M&A, the mergers and acquisitions and investments that have happened in personalized nutrition since April of 18. So I won't go through all the details of this, but you can see there's lots of companies that are investing in this space, putting their money where their mouth is, and actually starting initiatives in the nutrition space that are geared towards personalized nutrition. Most recently, Bayer, I mentioned Care of. Nestle acquired Persona. They've also made other investments that are there. Nestle's it's a part of their strategy is to be a leader in personalized nutrition, so they're going to continue to invest more. But these are the companies that have invested money over the last 3 or 4 years in this space. And here's some more recent fundings of some smaller companies in this space. You might have heard of some of these companies, and you might even think some of these companies are not totally personalized because it's not an exact definition. But investors are interested in this space for sure. We had a lot of investors at the conference I mentioned earlier, and they haven't quite figured out their theses yet, but they're all seeing this opportunity and they're starting to invest. One company on here in the center is in San Diego. I'll point them out. It's called Vessel. Vessel is a urine testing company. They took an old technology and sort of made it millennial-like in the 21st century and said they sell these cards that basically you pee on, and then you take a picture with your phone, and it tells you nine nutrients that you might be lacking in. So it'll say you don't have enough B6, you don't have enough B7, you don't have enough potassium, and they're going to grow from there. But they're going to use urine as sort of their entry-level point because they believe that that's a really good way to tell about nutrition beyond just a questionnaire, and they don't want to go through the blood pricking phlebotomy exercise. So they're trying to use urine as a simple way to do it. Then they've got a design maybe that you can put on your toilet, so you just pee, and it'll tell you, okay, Tom, you're low in vitamin C today. Go drink some orange juice. So that's an interesting company. They just raised $7 million. Day 2 is in the microbiome space. They raised money. Seed is a really interesting company, not really personalized yet, but could have a personalized platform. So what's the key to the future? I have 2 minutes left, and I'll just, if there's any questions, I might have time for that. It's up to Mike. But this is not new because nobody's done it yet, and I keep tweaking this a little bit. Oh, there's a vessel. That's the card that you pee on. And then they give you a bottle, by the way, that has your name on it with the supplements that you need. So basically, you don't have to take a multivitamin. You take, hey, here's exactly what you need based on your pee card. So the winners are going to be the ones that connect with consumers in an authentic way and change behavior. There's a great behavioral scientist out of Stanford named B.J. Fogg. I don't know if anybody's ever read any of his books. He's got a brand new book out called Tiny Habits. He's one of the smartest behavioral design people I've ever met. I went to many of his seminars, and I took his theory and just applied it to personalized nutrition. And I think the key at the end of the day, my final thoughts are, maybe we're not ready for prime time, but I don't think this is a fad. I think capital's entering this space. I think we need strong diagnostic solutions that may be challenging to develop, but they work with consumers, and they will demonstrate the accuracy of the recommendations in an easy way for consumers. We got to go beyond the questionnaire to different diagnostic tests because the questionnaire alone is not going to be enough, but it's a good entry-level test. There's nothing like blood work, and I'm still waiting for the day when you could take your blood in an easy way without being Elizabeth Holmes, who was just, I don't know, did that trial finish in the last couple of weeks? If you ever want to read an interesting book, read about her journeys in trying to launch her company. It was, forgot the name of the book, but it was called Blood, what was it called? Bad Blood. So that was, disruptive technology that didn't go well. But that's kind of where we're headed. If we can get blood, in an easy way, maybe a finger prick is the beginning of that path, but maybe there's some other ways to do that. There are some technologies out there. I think the tipping point is closer, but still, some people say it's 3 years away, 5 years away. The guy told me yesterday he thinks it's 7 to 8 years away before personalized nutrition is actually a big part of everybody's lexicon, and there's a big brand and a company offering this. But I know at the end of the day, you're going to have to solve 2 issues. One is motivate people to do this, because it's not easy. You got to get them motivated, and then you have to make it easy for them to actually do. I was talking to a fellow board member this morning. He said, the keys are you're going to make it easy, fun, cool, and then something that people are going to get something out of, right? Self-satisfying. And if you can't really, you get the motivation side, which is what Dr. Fogg talks about, but you need to make it easy to do. When you get easy to do and you get motivation, then people will start to do it. The hard part for personalized nutrition is it's not that easy to do. First of all, you have to get the diagnostic tests. Secondly, you have to get the results, and you have to make it easy for them to understand what they need to do with those results. And nobody's really tied all that together yet, although there's a lot of companies trying. So with that, I'll stop, and thank you for your attention today, and happy to take any questions. I don't know everything about this space, but I'm dedicating the rest of my life to trying to figure it out. Thank you for your time here today.